Chapter 3 of Knights of the Zodiac. Heaven Saga has just been released in Japan, and my friends, each chapter of this final Saint Seiya saga is surprising fans more and more, and Chapter 3 is no different. Even without memories, the knights haven't lost their protective instinct, and Seiya's Cosmo will once again start to burn. Hello, knights and Amazons. Welcome to the Semper Quis Saber channel. I'm Wes, and in today's video, I'm going to tell you all the details about Chapter 3 of Knights of the Zodiac, Heaven Saga. So go ahead and comment what you think about this saga, and of course, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and let's get into this awesome video. Sempre quis saber. Saint Seiya Heaven. Chapter in the Heaven Saga, Chapter 3, The Reborn Cosmo. The day dawns in the peaceful village of Rodorio in Greece. We see two people walking through those old stone streets. They were Seiya and Shun, having no idea of the grand destiny they would carry on their shoulders. They lived peacefully. Shun walks pulling a wooden cart loaded with plants. When he sees his friend coming from the opposite direction, Seiya greets Shun, who wishes his friend a good morning. That's how a normal day begins for Seiya, and the others, who still haven't recovered their memories. Shun then asks if Seiya was going to work, and the boy replies, "Yes, that's right. I'm going to help repair the temple on the outskirts of the village. Even though it's not much, I want to earn my own money to give my sister an easier and more comfortable life." Shun was curious and asks, "Now that you mention it, Seiya, you've been living with your older sister lately, haven't you?" The boy then replies, "Yes. Before I knew it, I was already living in that shop. I don't remember anything about my life before that, but even if I ask her, my sister doesn't tell me anything." Shun is surprised to hear this, but suddenly the two become alert when they hear a scream. It was the voice of a woman saying, "Stop that right now!" Shun quickly recognizes that voice. He says, "That's the lady from yesterday." Seiya agrees and says, "Yes, it's definitely her." The two then start running toward the direction of those screams, and Seiya, worried, says, "Could she have been cornered? By bandits?" Shun, concerned, says that would be terrible. "Let's hurry." Seiya and Shun then arrive at the scene running, and they stop quickly when they see that scene. Saori was surrounded by several shady men. They were thieves, very similar to the ones who attacked Seiya earlier. However, they all seemed very strange. Besides being dirty, they were making strange noises. However, Seiya notices something. The air becomes heavy, and feeling the pressure in the air, surprised, he said, "What is this overwhelming energy? That's coming from this young lady's body?" At that moment, the silhouette of the young girl is completely surrounded by a blinding aura of light. Without raising her fists and without showing any sign of effort, the girl's divine aura expands like an invisible shockwave. That light passes through the bandits. Seiya and Shun watch without understanding what was happening. The thieves, who previously seemed to be under the influence of something evil, simply change direction and leave the place. Shun, surprised to witness that, says, "The bandits are retreating." It's as if they were completely overwhelmed by the grandeur and purity of the young lady. Seiya is confused and asks, "What is really happening here?" And Shun was also trying to find some answer. Actually, who is this young lady? But before the two can get closer, a new and terrible threat appears. Dark and imposing silhouettes emerge at the top of the columns in that place. Because he used his Cosmo, even if just for a moment, that was already enough. And because of this, Athena is surrounded by the skeleton Specters. Seiya and Shun, at that moment, realize they are surrounded by these men in black armor. They then go on high alert due to the imminent confrontation. The skeleton Specters, whose armors are shining with a dark and evil tone, watch the two boys who were with Athena. Seiya, not understanding anything, asks, "But who the hell are these guys?" And Shun, analyzing the new opponents, realizes that the danger now is infinitely greater, and says they definitely don't look like ordinary thugs. Somehow, the energy they emanate is frightening and horrifying. Completely ignoring the presence of the two boys, the Specters focus their gaze on the girl in the dress. Several of them jump directly towards Saori and quickly surround her. They said, "Miss, how about coming with us without resisting?" However, the young girl doesn't back down a single inch. Her gaze is firm and fearless. One of the Specters approaches. He reaches out his hand to capture Saori and says, "If she refuses to come with us, then we'll kill her right here." However, before he could touch her, someone grabs the Specter's arm. It's Seiya who, without hesitation, intervenes in that situation. He says, "Can't you see that if you touch the young lady with that filthy hand, you'll dirty her clothes?" The soldier, surprised by the audacity, looks at Seiya and says, "Get out of here, you brat." Seiya, however, smiles and quickly replies, "That's what I'm telling you." The evil specter threw a violent punch at Seiya, but with superhuman and surprising agility, Seiya dodged at the last moment purely by instinct. He jumps, spinning backward, and puts some distance between himself and his opponent. Seiya dodged effortlessly, and that surprised him. The boy wondered if he had always been this fast. What does this mean? The Specters then join together and say, "You're in the way. Let's start by putting these brats in their place." Before he could defend himself, Seiya is captured by the Specters. The boy tries to break free, but he doesn't have enough strength. One of the Specters grabs his head and says, "Calm down, brat. It'll all be over in a moment." Shun, at that moment, steps forward, telling the Specters to stop that. However, suddenly he is also captured. The Specters said, "Hold it right there. Since you're here, we'll do the same to you." One of the skeleton Specters starts to strangle Seiya and says, "Now you will die." Seiya can't get out of that situation. He starts to lose consciousness and everything goes white in his mind. However, suddenly, something awakens inside him. An intense light comes out from within Seiya's body. The Specters quickly let go of the boy and, scared, said, "What's wrong with this guy? His body is burning. It's like fire." The powerful Cosmo was being expelled from Seiya's body, and the Specters who touched him felt their hands burning. Seiya then screams, and, as he extends his hands, he releases all that energy against his enemies. The Specters are hit and thrown far away by the impact of this Cosmo. All the Specters who were holding Seiya fall to the ground unconscious, and the boy watches the fallen enemies. While Saori was surprised to see that, she seems worried. Shun, also surprised, asks how Seiya did that. However, Pegasus, who had lost his memories, didn't know how to answer. He looks at his fist and says, "But what the hell is this? What is this power that suddenly wells up from inside my body?" While the young man was trying to process the miracle that had happened, Saori was paralyzed and said, You can't do this, Seiya." Athena's mind was still confused, and the remaining Specters prepared for battle. They hold their scythes and say, "This guy, a mere human of flesh and blood, plans to oppose us. Die, brat." One of the Specters attacks Seiya with his scythe, but the boy was no longer the same as he was just seconds ago. Before the enemy's weapon could hit him, Seiya moved like a beam of light. He dodges the attack and lands a powerful punch to the Specter's stomach. Seiya moves quickly and strikes the enemies before they even have time to react. In just an instant, that boy without memories defeated all the enemies surrounding him. However, Seiya, after doing all this purely by instinct, stops for a moment and doubts begin to flood his mind. Seriously? What the hell is this? Something is emanating from inside me, or rather from the depths of my heart. What is this mysterious power that keeps rising endlessly? Suddenly an answer comes to Seiya's mind. An absolute truth echoed in his brain. A mysterious voice that said, "This is Cosmo." Seiya was surprised by this event. He clenches his fists and says, "Cosmo? What is this Cosmo?" Seiya was searching for the origin of that revelation, but the place remained silent. Seiya asked, "But whose voice did I just hear?" No, more than just hearing a voice, it's as if someone whispered that directly into my heart. It was then, at that moment, that we realized the walls of those ruins behind Seiya reflected something familiar. The old stone walls of the ruins seemed to come to life. The ancient inscriptions of Ayorus' testament, which should be in the house of Sagittarius, are magically transported to that place. And the mysterious voice that we now know is Ayorus' voice keeps speaking to Seiya. "Seiya, remember? You must remember this. You are the warrior who protects the goddess Athena's holy knight, Seiya of Pegasus." At the peak of that divine call, Seiya's mind was flooded by a glorious vision. The image of himself wearing the Pegasus armor. My friends, what an exciting chapter. Kuramata also left a message saying that these new chapters were made with the collaboration of Chimaki Kwori, author of Sentia Show. He thanks Chimaki for her help, and with that, we understand why the artwork in these new chapters is so beautiful and elegant. Chimaki is one of the mangaka with the most beautiful art style in the Saint Seiya universe. I really like this chapter, and I'm very curious to know what will happen in Chapter 4. Will Seiya recover some of his memories? Or, for now, has he only regained his Cosmo? Leave your theories in the comments, of course. Thanks for watching until the end. See you next time. Let your Cosmo burn without end.